Good evening, bats and ravens. Madam Morgana here to regale you with another tale for Houston Public Library's Lights Out Storytime. This tale features some of my favorite things: dark and stormy nights, mysterious maidens whipped by the malicious winds of malicious fate, and a knight in a shiny metallic chariot coming to her rescue. Or is he? This tawdry tale was concocted by the dark and talented Rebecca Denham. Let's begin. As I mentioned, it was a dark and stormy night. Lightning shattered the sky and thunder shook the ground, but no rain had yet fallen. Along a lonely highway, a man drove, racing the storm, trying to make it home before the heavens opened. As he rounded a curve, lightning flashed as bright as day, revealing a woman standing in the middle of the road. The driver stood on the car's brakes, fishtailing across the center line and spinning around before coming to a halt. The man gripped the steering wheel so tightly, his hands cramped, and stared through the windshield at the woman. Wind whipped through the darkness, tangling the woman's hair into dark tentacles around her pale face and wide eyes. She approached the car. The man opened his door. "I'm sorry," he called. "I didn't see you until you were lit by the lightning. Are you okay?" The woman nodded. "What are you doing out here by yourself, miss? Did your car break down?" The woman nodded again. As the lightning flashed again and the driver could see that she had a small birthmark high on her right cheek. "Do you need a ride somewhere?" the man asked. Once more, the woman nodded. So mysterious. The man scrambled around the side of the car to open the passenger door. As the woman moved past him to enter the car, a wave of cold air surrounded him. "Ooh," said the man, "that storm is sure blowing cold." The woman gave a small smile and sat in the passenger seat. The man closed the passenger door and returned to the driver's seat. The woman shivered in the passenger seat, and the man could see that she was wet, soaked to the skin, in fact. Her lips were violet with cold. "You must be freezing," the man exclaimed, turning on the car's heater and adjusting the vents to blow on his passenger. "Here," he said, reaching to the back and grabbing his jacket. "Wrap yourself in this. We got to get you to a hospital." The woman clutched the edges of the jacket around her and sat quietly, teeth chattering. The man turned the car around and headed back towards the town he'd passed not too long ago, hoping there would be a hospital. As he drove, he glanced over at his passenger, but she just stared through the windshield, holding his jacket close around herself. Soon they reached the town the driver remembered, but he didn't see any signs for a hospital. Small town budgetary cuts, I suppose. The driver pulled up in front of the police station. "Stay here," he said to his passenger. "I'll get help." The woman looked at him with large, dark eyes. Lightning flashed. For a moment, the man thought he was staring into a skeletal face where dark hollows where eyes and nose and cheeks should be. He jerked back against the driver's door, and the light was gone. Once more, his passenger was just a pale, wet woman. "Stay here," he repeated. "I'll be right back." The woman nodded in the darkness. The man opened his door and left the car running since the woman was still shivering. He quickly jogged up the police station steps and yanked open the door. "I need help!" he yelled as he ran to the front desk. The officer behind the desk jumped to his feet. "What's your emergency?" he asked. "I found a woman on the road. She was soaking wet and freezing and can't get warm," said the driver. The officer stared at the man for a moment. Where did you find this woman?" he asked. The driver replied, "Out on the highway outside of town. Do you have a blanket or something? I gave her my jacket, but she's still so cold her lips are almost purple." The officer stayed where he was, near the desk, and asked again, "Where did you find her? Before or after the bridge?" "Bridge?" asked the driver. "What bridge? Look, I don't know this area. I'm just passing through." He gave a frustrated sigh. "This woman needs help," he repeated. All right, said the officer, making calming motions with his hands. He opened a door on the side of the room and grabbed a thick wool blanket off the closet shelf. "Let's take a look at this lady and see what we can do." The driver led the officer out to his car, motions jerky with agitation. "She was just standing in the road. If the light hadn't flashed, I might have hit her." The officer muttered something under his breath. "What?" said the driver. "Nothing," said the officer, arriving at the idling car. "So, where is she?" The driver stared through the passenger window at the empty seat. He jerked the car door open and leaned his head in, peering back into the back seat. "Where'd she go?" he exclaimed. "She was right here, see? You can see the down patch from where she was sitting." The driver slammed the car door and looked up and down the dark street. None of the businesses were open, and no houses were near. "Where'd she go?" he repeated. The officer watched the driver look for his missing passenger. "Can you describe this woman?" "Sure," said the driver. "She was young with long dark hair and dark eyes. She was wearing a blue dress. She had a birthmark right here," he said, pointing to his own cheek. "Where'd she go?" The officer gave a deep sigh. "You should go ahead and turn off your car and come inside. You look like you could use a warm drink." The man shivered and remembered he'd given the woman his jacket. "I don't understand," he said. "What's going on?" "Come with me," the officer said. "I'll explain everything." The driver turned off his car and pocketed the keys, following the police officer up the stairs into the station. The police officer sat the man at a table in the break room and gave him a large cup of coffee and a leftover sandwich. The driver cupped his hands around the coffee cup and stared at the office. "What's going on?" he asked again. "About 20 years ago, we had another storm like this one. Sprang up out of nowhere and washed out the bridge several miles outside of town," said the officer. "Okay," said the man. "What does that have to do with the woman who disappeared from my car?" "I'm getting there," the officer said. "Be patient. So the bridge was washed out, but no one knew it, and Amelia Lee was trying to get to her ranch on the other side of the river." "Who's Amelia Lee?" asked the driver. "Amelia Lee is the woman you saw tonight," said the officer. "Or rather, the ghost who saved your life tonight." "What?" shouted the driver. The officer shrugged. "Amelia Lee died that night. She couldn't see the part of the bridge had been washed away and dove right off the edge into the river." The officer could see the driver looking around the station, trying to see if there was another staff member to talk to. "I know it sounds crazy, but on nights like tonight, Amelia Lee sometimes shows up to warn drivers. We always discover damage to the bridge the next day." The driver just stared at the officer. "Here," said the officer. "I'll prove it. Is this the woman you saw?" He walked over to the wall, pulled down a framed news article, and handed it to the driver. "Look familiar?" The driver stared at the article. The words, "Tragedy After Storm," were in large, bold letters. He started to read the article. "The body of Amelia Lee was pulled from the river this morning. Miss Lee's car went off the bridge during last week's storm. The searchers have been trying to locate." The driver stared at the colored picture above the headline. A smiling woman wearing a blue dress, several decades out of style, stared out of the picture. She had long dark hair and large dark eyes and a birthmark on her right cheek. Don't you love a story with a happy ending? I do. Thank you so much for joining us for this evening's Lights Out Story Time. We hope that you join us again. Ta-ta. Pleasant nightmares.